triathlons, marathons, anybody that's started doing any kind of workout plan for the new year and you're a little sore than you thought you were going to be, that's going to be ways to help recover with that. And some of the stuff that I used to do back when I played football. So one of the first things I used to do after a game, so a game is 60 minutes long, but it's way longer than that, as if anybody watches them on TV, it takes forever. And I was on defense, and it would usually be at least 40, maybe 60 to 70 snaps every play, and you're down in a stance like this, all bent over, and after a while, at one point I had my leg went numb. I think it was my left leg went numb for a while, and it was one of those things where, I don't know what it is, just don't play, and I was like, okay. And then like 2 weeks later it came back, I'm like, oh, I can feel it again. They're like, okay, you can play again. I was like, okay. So a lot of concern for them. But yeah, you're always smashing heads and just, it's all kinds of trauma, and that's one of the things, you just try to stick your face in there. That's one of the things they always say, and that's not necessarily a good thing long term. So stretching is one of the big things I used to do. We always talk about stretching here in the office. So I didn't use the foot on the block like we always talk about here to stretch the soleus muscle. I would do the basic stretch where you find a wall, you lean forward, and then you stretch the back leg like that, and that stretches the calf out. But then what you would do is you would just bend your knee, and that helps to stretch the soleus muscle. But that's the way we do this one like this, and it's the same way. It's just easier. So that's why we do that. That's one of the reasons we do the soleus muscle for the pump. I just didn't know back then why I was doing it. And then I would do your basic quad stretch where you just go like that. Simple. Hamstring stretch, I used to do the two hands down like that, but then I was instructed when I got here that that's not the way you're supposed to do it, because when you go like that, the organs push back into the disc, and so that's going to push the disc into the nerves, so you have to have something somewhere for the internal organs to shift to, so you can put your foot up like this and stretch like that, and then everything can shift this way, and then you can still stretch that hamstring. For any hamstring stretcher uppers.
What kind of stretching down?
For the hamstring in the back. And also when you're doing this, you want to make sure you maintain that curve in your low back, so you're kind of stand up nice and straight and go like that, and then you can feel that stretch right back in the hamstring. Then just your basic shoulder stretches like that. Just hold that for a couple seconds. You'll feel that as well. And the reason I would do that, the cool down is important too, because they've shown that whenever you do any kind of cardiovascular exercise, if you stop immediately, it's kind of a shock for your system, and it takes a little bit longer for you to recover. But if you do like a slow, just kind of walking around, I would walk around the field, walk around the parking lot after games, just for like 5 or 10 minutes, no big deal, while I was doing these stretches. That helps you recover faster too. I always would take the omega-3s because it's an anti-inflammatory. And it would actually, it helps lubricate the joints, and it's really good for recovery as well. So that's always a good thing. So even back then I knew that was important. But this was the next one. This is the secret. Prepare. Are you ready for the secret? This is the secret. Oh, before I tell you the secret, just leave you hanging there. So has anybody heard about Peyton Manning? Everybody knows Peyton Manning? I know you do. But the big thing that came out last week about he's been taking growth hormone, and that's why he's doing so well, which is unfortunate because he's older and he's still playing well, and I think a lot of people are jealous of that, and they're thinking, oh, he's taking growth hormone. But the benefit to growth hormone, what it does is it allows you to recover faster, and that's why people that are older take it. It's in those rejuvenation clinics like in Vegas and stuff where you want to stay young forever, and the guys take the growth hormone, their hair grows back in, and their fingernails are nice and strong, and they get the muscle tone and stuff like that. But there's a natural way you can do that that's way healthier. Not quite to that extent, and it's glutamine. Now I would take glutamine, it would only take about 2 grams, which is 2,000 milligrams, which is a little scoop, and would just throw it in some water. I'm a little crazy. I don't like having to wait for a cup of water, so I'll just throw the powder in my mouth and then take a sip of water and swish it around. And Dr. Mike always gives me a hard time about that. But the glutamine really helps. It literally, I don't know if it's a psychological thing, but I would take the glutamine after a really hard workout, after a game, and you literally almost instantaneously feel more refreshed, and it really cuts the recovery time down a lot. So glutamine is super important, and then I looked up glutamine to see if there's any studies about it as to why that works, and if there are any other cases where it worked. And so this is what I found. It's an essential amino acid that's needed by your body in large amounts. It promotes digestive and brain health, which I did not know, muscle growth, which I did know, athletic performance, and more. And it fights cancer, I found out, and high blood sugar, did not know that. And it's found in both animal and plant protein, so if you're vegan, you can still find it. And it's available in supplement form, which is always a bonus.
Can you take it by tablet?
Yep, you can. I don't know if you'll get as much, because some of the studies here, they were taking 30 grams, which is 30,000 milligrams, which is a little excessive in my book, but I was doing like 2 grams, which is 2,000 milligrams. So in gastrointestinal health, this was a study they did. They studied the structure and function of the gut And the structure and function is preserved in the rats they gave glutamine to. So it helped their absorption to make sure that their gut didn't get holes blasted in and things like that. Because you want absorption to be able to get the nutrients into your system. And a lot of these different rats and different people that they did other studies with, they were having some digestive issues, and glutamine helped with that. And I didn't know it did that. So I was pretty impressed by that. This is another thing I didn't know. It's an essential neurotransmitter in the brain and helps with memory, focus, and concentration. It is found abundantly in the central nervous system. I see you looking, Hank. In the central nervous system, where it participates in a variety of metabolic pathways. And let me see here. Disturbances in metabolism and/or transport contribute to changes in the GABA-glutamine and the transmissions associated with different pathological conditions. So people that have some brain injuries such as epilepsy and encephalopathy, if they take more glutamine, it actually helps heal the body a lot faster. So glutamine, and that was 30 grams a day in that study.
Okay.
Yes. And more digestive stuff I didn't know about. It improves IBS and diarrhea by balancing mucus production, which results in a healthy bowel movement, which is always good. 2 or 3 days, very important. So if you're not having that, important. Alex?
You took 2 grams every day?
Every day. You can actually, some days I would take 4. It promotes muscle growth and decreased muscle wasting. And this was a really interesting study because it was done with people that were having problems from metabolic injuries and help patients. There's another study in a second that works on people with cancer. And the thing I really liked about that one, I'll tell you more about it in a minute, but they thought that it actually helped heal the cancer, but it's actually more interesting than that. Improved athletic performance, which we know, and recovery from endurance exercises. That was a study that was done. It provided a significant ergogenic benefit by increasing the time to exhaustion during a mild hydration stress. In other words, you didn't have enough water, you got dehydrated, so then you add the glutamine, it actually helps you recover faster, which is really helpful, especially after a football game. It improves metabolism and cellular detoxification. This was a study they did in patients that were chronically acidotic or alkalotic. They're not in patients actually, they did this one in rats, and the glutamine actually helped to improve those metabolic conditions. So glutamine, once again,
Wow.
excellent. Curbs cravings for sugar and alcohol. Now I thought this was funny because when you're playing pro football, after every game, everybody knows you're going to go to the after party, and that's just kind of how it works. And so I thought that was interesting because I never really noticed that to be the case. But a lot of times the guys are doing that, and I realized this after the fact. You're going to the bar after the game because you're so beat up that you just don't want to feel anything, and so you're getting your Long Island iced teas or whatever. And the problem with that is if you don't drink enough water at the same time, the next day you're going to be twice as dehydrated and really hurting. But now I know glutamine and coconut water is really important because the electrolytes, because that helps a lot with that. Now this is what I really like. It fights cancer. This was a study, they thought it fought cancer, but actually what it does is it helps decrease the symptoms of nausea and the diarrhea that's caused not from the cancer, but from the chemotherapy and the radiation. So it's so it's not fighting cancer, it's fighting the symptoms that are caused by the treatment for cancer that doesn't really work. But anyway, they don't want to say that out loud. So I was like, okay, if you want to say it that way, go ahead. Improves diabetes and blood sugar, which is really good. That was a 6-week supplementation with that 30 grams a day. Most of these studies were 30 grams a day. And this was a study I did on myself. Dramatically increases recovery time. And I like my reference there. Do you like that? That's okay. Okay, so that's glutamine. And glutamine, like I said, it's in a powder form. You can get crystals, you can get powder. I just like the little powder. It comes with a little scooper, and you just put it in some water and drink it right afterwards, and it is really, really good. Some of the post-workout drinks already have it in there, but then you have to check to make sure there's no artificial sweeteners in those drinks too, because that's one of the bad things. Because I had such a problem keeping my weight on that the guys used to give me a hard time because I would pack a blender and a big protein shake in my bag for every away game. So after the games, I'm pulling out my blender in the locker room. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're killing me," and because it was like a 5,000 calorie shake that it was probably half sugar, but I needed the calories, and so I would blend that up and drink that. So, But it helped me weigh. I weighed back then about 285, so yeah, it was a lot to carry around. Water, of course. We all need water. Half your body weight in ounces. I was drinking about a gallon a day back then. And the neat thing is during training camp, it's in Nashville, it was about 110 to 115 degrees during training camp because it was July, August out in Nashville. And so one of the things the trainers would do is they really made sure you weighed yourself before practice and after practice to see how much weight you lost from sweating. And if you lost anywhere over 8 to 15 pounds, which happened more than you would like to think, it was really important that you rehydrated and got that much water back in your system before the next practice because there were 2 a day, and so you had to make sure you had that done before the next practice. So a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds, in case you didn't know that. I should have had a quiz. I could have done that. But I had a day where I had lost 11 pounds during practice, went in, drank my gallon of water, and then it kind of balanced it out, which was good. But then I got a little trickier. I said, you know, I always have problems keeping my weight on because the heaviest I ever was in college was 251. And I mean, I literally had a coach I had to call every time I would eat. I had to call him and tell him what I ate, and then he'd say, okay, go eat another one. And I'd be like, I just had 2 Big Macs. He'd be like, go and eat another one. I'm like, okay. And I mean, it was horrible. The coach didn't want me chewing gum because it was burning calories. He's like, don't chew gum. You're burning calories. I'm like, really? I'm like, this is fun. So anyway, I figured out the trick was since a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds, I'm going to weigh in and I need to weigh 250 pounds, let's say, and let's say I weigh 242 pounds. If I drink a gallon of water right before I weigh in, I'll be 250 and I'll make my weight and I won't get in trouble. And so I did that once and it actually worked, except the strength coach knew I was doing that. And so he would say if I didn't make weight, because I remember there was one time that I didn't make my weight, I was like 2 pounds short and he knew the coaches were going to be really mad. And so I got off the scale and he's like, can you go drink more water? And I am not even kidding, just the thought of it, I looked at him and just started throwing up water everywhere. And I was like, man, I got to drink a whole nother gallon. I can't do it. So yeah, it was, water's interesting. You can get too toxic with, if you drink too much water, you kind of dilute your electrolytes. So that's another issue you can have. So don't go and try to drink like 5 gallons of water, because there was a guy, I think it was a radio show, they were having a contest to see who could drink the most water, and somebody died from that. So yeah, you don't want to drown either. That'd be bad. But ice baths. Now this is another interesting thing. You had the ALS ice bucket challenge or whatever, dumping the water and all that. Well, we used it kind of in a different way, and I found a really interesting study from a triathlon website talking about ice baths. Now, we go in, and when I was playing in Europe over in Scotland, we won the championship in '96, which was really cool because we got to go play in Amsterdam, we played in Barcelona, we played in Frankfurt, Dusseldorf, a bunch of other places. So that's the only way I ever would have gone to see Europe when I was playing football, which was kind of neat because I got paid to do it. But in Barcelona, in the locker room itself, you go in the locker room, and there are these 2 giant bathtubs just sitting right in the middle of the locker room. It's kind of weird, but then what it's for is you fill it full of ice and water, and after the game, everybody just kind of, not more than one person at a time, but everybody just gets in the tub and just soaks there for about 5-10 minutes. So I thought that was interesting. And then in other places in the showers, they would just have a big Tupperware trash can full of ice water. And so while you're showering, actually you would jump in the ice first and then you would shower. But it was just crazy because guys would see who could like go under the water all the way and like hold their breath and stuff. It was interesting. So here's some do's and don'ts if you're going to do some ice baths, because the reason that I love ice baths is the way that you feel during is awful. You get in, you don't want to do it, you have to psych yourself up, you jump in the water, it almost is so cold that it almost feels hot, it's like burning, and then it starts to get cold, and then you just kind of get numb and don't feel anything. But then when you get out, about 30 minutes to an hour after you get out of the ice tub, you literally feel like you have a whole new body, or legs, or whatever part you've had in the water. I mean, it's amazing. It's because it cuts down the circulation and basically stops at that cold water. And then when you get out, you gradually start to warm up again, and the fresh blood starts flushing out the joints. And you're gonna freak out. It's amazing if you try that at home. It's really cool.
That actually works your muscles.
Yeah, it's amazing because you start shaking because of the shivering and stuff. I mean, it's amazing. So here's the do's and don'ts for ice baths. And he's extra conservative in this article, but that's okay. So when you get started, start at about 54 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you want to start a little bit higher, if you're a little worried that you don't want to like shock yourself and have a heart attack, obviously you don't want you to shock yourself. Go slow, Alex. but you gradually can go into some colder water. But the thing is, the two that you can do that I like is you can get into regular warm temperature or room temperature water and just have somebody add ice to it, so then it gradually cools it down and you don't notice it as much. It's kind of like the frog. If you throw him into a boiling pot of water, he jumps out, and if you gradually warm it up, he stays in there. That's actually not true, by the way, but it's a nice metaphor. So, you never heard that one? Yeah, if you try to throw a frog into hot water, he jumps right out. But if it's warm water and you put him in there and let him swim around and you gradually turn it up, he just boils without realizing it. It's so sad, but it's not true. So don't overexpose. You should only go about 6 to 8 minutes. We used to go about 10 to 15, but we were overachievers, I guess. But it works great. So you don't want to exceed 20 minutes or 10 minutes. It says there, but I would say 20, because you could get hypothermia. I love that bird. What was that bird noise? Don't assume that colder is better. Spending a prolonged period of time in colder water, colder than 54 degrees, could be dangerous. Okay, I'll go with that, just to be conservative. Now this is interesting too, because in all of the training rooms they're not full-size hot tubs, and they're for cold baths, so it's about this big. I think if you've seen any of the Cam Newton commercials where he's wanting to get into his favorite ice tub, and there's a guy in there already, and he wants to get in with him, and he ends up getting in there with him because it's his favorite lucky ice tub or something. Anyway, it's a little stainless steel tub, but it circulates the water around like a hot tub, but it's cold water with ice, and that actually has an effect where it pulls the heat away from the body. So even though the temperature of the water might be 56 degrees or whatever, it actually feels like you're even colder because it's pulling that heat away from your body. So that has a more effective use of the temperature, which is really awesome. And don't assume that 54 or 60 degrees is what you have to use. You can go higher if you want, or if you want to go colder, you can. Just be careful. And very light exercise also facilitates blood flow to the muscles. If you want to, and this is awesome for us, because if you have an area, if you live near the ocean like we do, or if you have a swimming pool where you live, you can check the temperature of the pool, and maybe you just want to jump in the pool or jump in the ocean. And that'll help cool you off and help to heal you. Except if you're in the ocean with the waves, it might be a little tiring because you can't just sit there, because it'll knock you over and you might drown, so that'd be bad. You don't want to rush to take a warm shower. Oh, I got a bad story about this one. So I'm playing in Houston at the time after a game. We are in the ice tub, because they have a really big ice tub in the main housing facility there in Houston. And so we're sitting there, and it's time for a shower, and this one guy, it wasn't Steve McNair, it was Jeremy Nunley. He played for Alabama back years ago when they won the championship years ago. And anyway, got out of the tub, and he wanted to take a shower, and he hopped in this hot shower. And when you go from really hot or really cold to really hot, you pass out every time, because that really drastic change in temperature, your brain can't process it, and you get really lightheaded and pass out. So yeah, he passed out, and we gave him a hard time for about the rest of the season for that one. So be really careful. You can go into room temperature water, but no big swings in temperature, because it makes a really big difference. So water is really important. You want to make sure you do the omega-3s are really important. The glutamine is so huge. You can get that at Mother's has L-glutamine. Just ask them where the glutamine is. Whole Foods will have it. Any health food type place will have it. GNC has it. Make sure you drink the water. And the stretching is so important, because what happens is when you really overexert yourself, you get into the anaerobic Krebs cycle. It's a whole nother thing where you build up the lactic acid in your muscles, and that is actually what makes you sore. And so that's what the cool down is for, because when you're walking afterwards for 5-10 minutes, doing your stretches and stuff, that's gradually cooling down the muscle and working out some of that lactic acid, so you won't be as sore afterwards. And that's when the glutamine comes into play. And then make sure you're doing the ice baths, which are really, really good. And really, that's all I do. I mean, here's the source for the ice baths. That's all I do for recovery after football games and really hard workouts, and sometimes really long days here in the office, so I'll do the same thing. But, and I mean, it's not that complicated, it's just you have to do it. And the biggest thing is the psychological aspect of getting into a tub of ice water. You can't just like dip your toe in, because there's no way you won't do it. You just have to just hold your breath and just jump in, and then eventually it's not fun, and then you don't want to move too much unless you're in one of those circulating whirlpool things, because if you start moving, it'll get to a part of your skin that it hasn't been touching before, and then it just and you turn kind of red. But it really is a miraculous, super simple way to recover after really intense exercise. It really, really does help a lot. I know that was really brief and quick, but do you guys have any questions or want to know any other football stories?
Why don't you use a hot tub?
Because you're already hot, and I mean you're all sweaty from your exercise, so you want to cool down, and that helps cool down the muscles. Yeah, because they've been overheated.
They should have those in gyms, though.
They should. Some of them do. Yeah.
But they tell you to go to the hot tub or the steam.
Yeah, and then we have people that go from a cold pool to the sauna to the steam room. Yeah, you got to be careful with that one too. You can get lightheaded. Some people do that on purpose.
How much glutamine should I take?
I would take two grams.
All day.
I can tell you're always in there pumping iron. I can tell.
So, I mean,
2 grams.
What are you thinking?
Just 2 grams.
2 grams?
You might even go 2 grams twice a day.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you're drinking your water
If I
though.
don't work out that day, I should take 2 grams.
Yeah, just take 2 grams anyway, just from everyday activity, because it helps with brain function too. That was another one of the benefits.
What a cold shower, does that have the same effect as a?
No, because you have to be in a cold shower. Yeah, it's better than a hot shower, but if you're in a tub that's cold, it's actually pulling the heat away from your body, and it's like there's no air involved. With the shower, it's not the same. Yeah, I wish it was. It'd be easier, but it's not. And if you just want to like soak if your feet hurt at the end of the day, you can get a cold ice bucket like that big and put your foot down in there for 5-10 minutes. If you want to start out doing it that way and then work your way up, I would just, that just sounds not fun at all to me though. I'd be like, I just jump all in. If you can go all the way up to your chin, that's really nice too. But that's a little overachieving. I wouldn't do that. I don't know. Well, thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.